your body knew before your mind was willing to accept it. There was a moment, maybe a specific evening, maybe just an ordinary Tuesday, when she walked through the door and something you couldn't name and couldn't prove felt different. Not different bad, exactly. Just different. Off. Like a painting that's been moved an inch and rehung slightly crooked. The room looks the same, but something isn't where it was. That feeling didn't come from nowhere. The human nervous system is an extraordinarily sensitive instrument. It picks up on changes in the people closest to us, changes in energy, in behavior, in the quality of presence before the conscious mind has assembled enough evidence to form a conclusion. You felt something real. And today we're going to find out if what you felt had a name. You're living inside a question you're terrified to answer. Let me describe the specific kind of pain that brought you here. It's not the sharp, clean pain of knowing something. But terrible. It's worse than that. It's the dull, persistent, identity-eroding pain of not knowing. Of being inside a relationship that looks intact from the outside while something inside you keeps raising its hand and saying something is wrong here and being unable to either confirm or dismiss it. You find yourself doing things you never used to do. Paying attention to her phone in a way that feels beneath you. Replaying conversations for hidden meanings. Noticing the timing of things when, but she came home, how long she was gone, why the story she told doesn't quite line up with the one she told before. And the worst part, you feel guilty for noticing. You've been conditioned to believe that suspicion is a character flaw, that a good partner trusts, that checking is controlling. But there's a difference between paranoia and perception. And what you've been experiencing, that specific low-frequency wrongness that won't go away no matter how many times you talk yourself out of it, but deserves to be taken seriously. So let's take it seriously. Here are the 5 signs. Not to condemn her, not to build a case, but to give you back the one thing that's been stolen from you. Clarity. 1. Her physical presence changed in a way that feels deliberate. This is the first sign, and it's the one that registers in the body before it registers in the mind. Something about the way she inhabits her physical self shifted. Maybe she's more careful about her appearance in contexts that don't. Might warrant it. Maybe she started showering at different times immediately upon arriving home rather than in the morning, or in the middle of the day when that was never her routine. Maybe there's a new deliberateness to how she smells, how she dresses, how she presents herself physically. Individually, any of these changes has an innocent explanation, but the cluster of them appearing together within the same window of time tells a different story. Because here's the psychology. Guilt. But physical intimacy with someone else almost always produces compensatory physical behavior, a hyper-awareness of the body and what it might reveal. An urgency around cleanliness or appearance that isn't about vanity, it's about erasure. The removal of evidence, not from the environment, but from the body itself. You're not wrong to notice. The body leaves trails, and the nervous system of the person who loves her picks up those trails even before the mind knows what it's tracking. The emotional intimacy between you developed a specific new distance. Not all emotional distance is the same. This matters. Normal relationship distance, the kind that comes from stress, from busyness, from the natural ebb and flow of closeness over time, feels like weather. It comes, it's uncomfortable, and it passes. You might not feel perfectly connected for a week, but the underlying foundation feels intact. The ground is still solid even when the sky is gray. The distance that follows, fidelity feels different. It has a particular quality, almost architectural. Like a wall that has been carefully, quietly constructed between the two of you. And unlike weather, it doesn't lift on its own. It has to be managed, maintained. She becomes slightly more surface level in her conversations with you. The emotional depth that used to be available, the easy intimacy of two people who know each other, completely gets replaced by a version that is present but partitioned. She answers, but doesn't elaborate. She engages but doesn't reach. And here's what makes this sign so specific. If you try to go deeper, if you reach for genuine emotional connection, there's a subtle resistance. Not hostility, something more careful than that. A redirection, a pivot to something lighter. She can't give you full emotional presence right now because full emotional presence would require honesty. And honesty is the one thing the situation can't survive. Her guilt is expressing. There's unexplained generosity. This one surprises people when they first hear it, but the psychology behind it is consistent and well documented. Guilt needs somewhere to go. It cannot simply sit inside a person without finding an outlet. And one of the most common outlets, particularly for people who genuinely care about the partner they've wronged, is compensatory generosity. She becomes suddenly more attentive, more thoughtful, more willing to do the things that usually require. But negotiation, she suggests the restaurant you've been wanting to try. She initiates affection at unusual times. She's more patient with your quirks, more interested in your day, more present in small domestic moments. None of this would be suspicious on its own. These are all good things, theoretically. But the timing and the quality are off. The generosity feels slightly anxious, like it's working to produce a feeling rather than expressing one, like it's compensating for something invisible. And in quieter moments, in the moments when there's no gesture to perform, there's still that underlying flatness, that fundamental distance we talked about in the last sign. Guilt-driven generosity has a texture. It's warmer than usual on the surface and colder than usual underneath. And when you feel both of those things simultaneously, warmth from her actions, cold from her actual presence, your nervous system is picking up the contradiction. She became protective of her time in a new, specific way her schedule developed a privacy it didn't used to have. Not necessarily more secretiveness around her phone, though, that may be part of it, but a broader guardedness around time, around where she's been, how long she was there, who she was with, around the parts of her day that used to be naturally shared and are now slightly sealed off. You notice it when you ask a casual question about her day and the answer is slightly compressed. Not evasive exactly, but edited. Like full version of the day has been reviewed and a shorter, safer version delivered in its place. You notice it when plans change slightly and the explanation doesn't quite satisfy, not because it's provably false, but because it leaves a small gap. A moment where the timeline doesn't quite add up. A detail that shifts slightly between the telling and the retelling. People who have nothing to manage don't manage their time this carefully. The meticulous accounting of location and activity is the behavior of someone who is keeping two timelines from colliding. And even when they're not actively with anyone else, the habit of careful time management remains because the habit was built in service of something, and habits don't disappear the moment the immediate need for them does. Something changed in how she experiences physical intimacy with you. This is the most sensitive sign to discuss, and I want to approach it with the care it deserves. Physical intimacy in a committed relationship has its own language, its own rhythm, its own familiar quality that develops between two specific people over time. And that language changes gradually and naturally as the relationship evolves. But there is a different kind of change. One that appears relatively suddenly. One that feels like a departure rather than an evolution. Sometimes it shows up as withdrawal, a new reluctance, a new distance in what used to be the closest physical space between you, an inability to be, like fully present in moments of intimacy, like part of her is somewhere else even when her body is there. Sometimes it shows up as the opposite, an overcorrection that has a slightly performative quality, an intensity that seems to be working towards something rather than expressing something that feels underneath its surface warmth, like it's trying to cover or compensate or replace something rather than simply being what it always was. In either case, what you're feeling is a departure from the specific language that was yours. And that departure, that sense of something familiar becoming slightly foreign, is one of the most honest signals the body produces when something fundamental has shifted. The importance of seeing the pattern, not just individual signs before we move forward. This needs to be said clearly. Every single one of these 5 signs has an innocent explanation in isolation. Physical changes can come from many places. Emotional distance exists in healthy. It's relationships during hard seasons. Guilt-driven generosity could be responsiveness to your needs. Time management can be about work stress. Physical intimacy evolves naturally. What changes the meaning entirely is the cluster. Multiple signs appearing simultaneously within the same narrow window of time, representing a departure from who she was before that window. And the other thing that changes the meaning is your gut, not your fear. Fear distorts everything it touches, but your gut, which operates on information your conscious mind hasn't fully assembled yet. Your gut, which knew something was different before you had a single piece of evidence to point to. If your gut has been consistent, if the feeling hasn't faded with reassurance or time, that consistency itself is information. 7. What you actually deserve and what comes next. Here's what I want you to hear before anything else about what to do. You deserve to know the truth about your own relationship, not as punishment, but not for revenge. But because you are a human being whose life is built in part on the foundation of this partnership, and you cannot make real, informed decisions about your own future while operating on incomplete or false information. The path forward is a direct, honest conversation, not armed with evidence, not as an accusation, but from the place of your own honest experience. Something has felt different between us, and I can't keep pretending I don't notice it. I need us to be honest with each other about where we actually are, because I'd rather know the truth than live in something that isn't real. Whatever her response is genuine honesty, defensiveness, confirmation, denial, her response will tell you everything her behavior has been suggesting. And from that truth, however painful, you can finally build something solid. Either a real conversation that saves something worth saving, or a clear ending to something that was already over. Both are better than the limbo, but you're in right now. You are not paranoid. You are perceptive, and there is an enormous life-changing difference between those two things. The signs we discussed today were not designed to destroy your relationship. They were designed to give you back the one thing that sustained betrayal always steals first: your ability to trust your own perception of reality. You felt something. That feeling was real. And now you have language for it, not to punish anyone, but to finally see clearly where clarity has been deliberately obscured. Whatever the truth turns out to be, face it, seek it, require it. Because a life lived in honest truth, even a painful one, is always more survivable and ultimately more livable than a life spent managing the anxiety of something you sense but cannot name. You deserve the truth. Go get it. If this video reached something real in you today, if it named what you've been carrying without a name, subscribe. Every week on this channel, we have the honest, difficult, necessary conversations about love, betrayal, trust, and what it takes to live in truth inside the relationships that define our lives. You're not alone in this, and you don't have to figure it out in silence.